be the punishment for theft under the Mosaic law? This is the question we seek to answer today as we continue our verse-by-verse study of the book of Exodus on walking through the Bible.
Of his word, the glory of his cross.
If you have a Bible with you, you can turn to Exodus chapter 22. We're going to be reading from verses 1 to 6. If you don't have a Bible, don't worry. Just follow along with us on the screen. The version that we'll be reading from is the New King James Version. So, Exodus 22, beginning at verse 1. If a man steals an ox or a sheep and slaughters it or sells it, he shall restore 5 oxen for an ox and 4 sheep for a sheep. If the thief is found breaking in and he is struck so that he dies, there shall be no guilt for his bloodshed. If the sun has risen on him, there shall be guilt for his bloodshed. He should make full restitution. If he has nothing, then he shall be sold for his theft. If the theft is certainly found alive in his hand, whether it is an ox or a donkey or a sheep, he shall restore double. If a man causes a field or a vineyard to be grazed and lets loose his animal, and it feeds in another man's field, he shall make restitution from the best of his own field and the best of his own vineyard. If fire breaks out and catches in thorns, so that the stacked grain, standing grain, or the field is consumed, he who kindled the fire shall surely make restitution. In chapter 21 through 23, we have God's judgments about certain applications of his law. These would be recorded in the book of the covenant and would be part of the law of Moses. In the last section of chapter 21, we had what would happen if an animal killed another human. In general, the guilty animal was to be killed, and the culpability of the owner of that animal depended on whether it was known that the animal was dangerous or not. Seeing the potential severity of the consequences of breaking these laws should cause Israel not to be careless concerning their animals. The beginning of chapter 22 concerns theft and the punishment for theft. In Exodus 20, the 8th commandment was, "You shall not steal." This was a direct command, but as we know, there are people who break the law no matter how explicit it is. So here, God is giving the punishment for what happens if a person does steal. Verse 1 deals with the theft of oxen or sheep that are either slaughtered or sold by the thief. When the person is caught, they are to restore 5 oxen for every ox stolen, and 4 sheep for every sheep stolen. This is quite a high price to pay for stolen animals, which would hopefully serve as a deterrent against theft. How God came up with the exact restitution is not explained to us, but one can presume that the penalty was so severe that people wouldn't steal. The reason for the difference in restitution, though, is obviously based on the usefulness of the animal. Oxen were used in labor and not just for food, while a lamb was used for its wool and for its meat, something less valuable than the oxen. Verses 2 and 3 deal with how one can deal with a thief that breaks into his house. If the theft occurs in the middle of the night, those in the house will not be guilty if they kill the thief. Even though the exact reason for this is not given, one can reasonably assume that it is because in the night you can't see the thief, don't know how strong he is, nor his true intentions, for maybe he broke in to murder someone. So killing in self-defense here is allowed. However, such was not allowed if the theft occurred during the day. Due to the fact that the thief can be seen, the thief is to be captured either by you, if possible, or by someone who is able. So, as we can see, self-defense or even defense of property is regulated, and it is not always permissible to kill a thief, even if he is stealing your things. God's rule is still that mankind shall not take another man's life. People are to allow those who he has put in charge, in other words, governments and judges, to exact penalties for crimes. When the thief is caught, the thief is to make full restitution. If what is stolen is found still to be in his possession, double what was stolen would be the punishment. This is different than what we found in verse 1 due to the fact that the original stolen items can be returned, whereas in verse 1, they in all likelihood could not be returned. What if the thief could not pay for what was stolen? He was to be sold for his theft. He was not to be placed in prison. He was to be made someone's slave, and the implication is then that the money from the sale of the thief would be given to the person that had been stolen from. The thief would then be treated under the rules found at the beginning of chapter 21. Again, this was a harsh penalty. 6 years of slavery meant to deter people from becoming thieves. Verses 5 and 6, though, not dealing with the direct theft by a person, does deal with the form of theft. If a person allows his animals to graze in the field, yet they get out and graze in the neighbor's field, he shall make restitution of the best of his field and the best of his vineyard. Yes, the owner may not have meant for his animals to get loose and eat his neighbor's crops, but either through neglect or carelessness, they did. This is what we would call an accident, but the neighbor still needed to receive payment for what was eaten. This is completely fair, for the neighbor had lost the proceeds from what the food could be sold for, or the food itself if his crops were for himself and his family. This law meant that the Israelites should be attentive when their animals were grazing. The same things goes for kindling a fire. Those in wildfire country know that small fires can become large fires very quickly. Sometimes the fires can spread to someone's fields and kill their crops. When this happens, restitution needs to be made by the person who started the fire. What if it was an accident? It doesn't matter. Restitution still needs to be made. This law would certainly cause people to take care when setting fires. With that, our time is up for today. Lord willing, we hope you'll join us for tomorrow's discussion of Exodus 22, verses 7 to 15, as we continue our walk through the Bible, one verse at a time.
I'm not a...
Thank you for watching today's episode. We hope that you found it edifying and ask that you not only subscribe to our channel and podcast, but that you like and share this episode among your friends, so that the saving gospel of Jesus Christ can go out to the whole world.